We are live, you guys. So, hi, I'm RT Bear, 35-year comic book veteran, worked for both Marvel, DC on characters like Spider-Man, X-Men, Superman, Detective Comics, Batman, yes, Snoresville, and a little upstart company called Image Comics. So we are coming live from Hack Shack Studios, and I have a very special guest here on Hacks Chat. Yes, it is the great one, Aaron Lopresti. How are you, Aaron?
I'm great, Art. Thanks for having me.
Hey, should we talk about how monumental this was to even make this happen?
Well, when you talk about two guys as old as we are trying to figure out technology, it's pretty scary. But you managed it. You know, I'm just on the receiving end. I just clicked a button. Although it said, the first thing it said was your browser does not support this program. So I'm like, great. So I had to download Firefox and go through all that, which took me 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And I did, you know, it was no problems. It led me right through. I followed the steps, and here I am. So,
well, you know what? We should pat ourselves on the back, because with all the problems that we had going into this, we were thinking we were going to go live at 1 o'clock.
that's true. So we're ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we're ahead of schedule here.
And I'm sure no one else is joining us at this point because we promoted it for 5 minutes. But hey, hopefully it'll start kind of rolling in here.
Yeah, we got Jim Bobo in the chat. We have Taylor Grosso. Hey, Taylor.
Well, okay, I have a thing that says private chat and live. Do I have to click on live comments?
Live comments.
Oh, okay.
It should be showing up. You should be able to see those.
There it is. I see it now.
So if you guys are in the chat, please chime in, because we need validation. You know, like that that Pink Floyd song, "Is There Anybody Out There?" Right? There's a boomer song for you. Art looks great for a Force Ghost. Oh, because
very blue.
Yeah, the camera's blown out a little bit.
But
yeah,
you know what? You're blue and I'm sort of orange, so we have this orange-blue complementary thing going. So I think it actually works.
Yeah, the hot cold thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're hot-blooded, and I'm like a frigid air man.
You look like Mr. Freeze.
Hey, you got to get your mic in the shot so you look like.
Uh-oh, did you see that? Mark C said Mitch Breitweister and EVS are currently streaming too.
Oh no, we're gonna get our asses kicked. Oops.
Well, we'll start the revolution right here, right?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be up so people can find it later and check it out as well. So we are going to do an in-depth interview with the man, the myth, Aaron Lopresti, that I actually had the privilege to work with a few times in the past 25 years.
21 years. Because I think 98 was the first time, that Dr. Doom X-Men annual that we worked on together.
Okay.
Was the first time.
And that was for Marvel. Yes.
Well, you know, Dr. Doom, X-Men, yeah.
Well, you know, sometimes you got to drop the name.
That's right. That's true. Let them make sure they know we're still alive, right?
Well, also just like, you know, we work for Marvel and DC. We're not fly-by-night guys, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
This is serious. Yeah. This is big time.
This is big league.
Huge stuff.
Yeah. Heavy hitters.
All we're doing is promoting our indie, creator-owned stuff. But yes, we work for the big guys. There it is. You got to move it the other way because it flips you on the screen. So you're like,
oh, does it?
Yeah. See, there you
go. Yeah.
No, wait, was that an actual book?
Yeah, it came out. What's the date on this? It was early 2000s.
Oh, so you're re-releasing all your stuff. Is there new material in there?
This is new material that we're releasing now, but this is 2004.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you release that through Image?
Yeah, the first book. And then I went through a company called Alias Comics, and I did 4 books through them.
It was a TV show called Alias.
And a publishing company.
Well, I didn't know
that. So we have Mark C. Hey, Mark C. We have, how you say that? Knox? Is that Knox? What is that? 5?
Hey, Taylor says Fire and Ice. I like that. That's clever.
Yes. And we have Shinto Ketchup.
Yeah.
Hey. Yeah. So if you guys are in the chat, please chime in, because it helps. It helps. It's not like it builds our ego, but it just validates that we actually did this and made it work. We're functional.
That's right. It's more a commentary on our technical achievement than it is anything else.
And then anything else.
Yeah.
So should we start with letting people who may not know who Aaron Lopresti is give a little backstory, give a little history?
Well, look at Farmer Dan down there. Says, Aaron, I loved your work on the new 52 JLI. Best booster gold art since Jurgen's original run. So one person knows who I am.
Yes. So far, so good.
From a series I did 8 years ago. So they're probably going, well, what has he worked on in the last 8 years?
Well, Shinto's just like, wow. Like just a wow. So maybe he just figured out who you are.
Well, maybe that's a wow to you, though. Or a wow to our technical achievement of actually getting on the air.
It could be anything.
It could be. But we'll take it as a positive for us.
Yes. Anything at this point is a positive.
Yeah, Shinto, if it's not a positive about us, don't clarify. Just leave it ambiguous, and we can make it be whatever we want it to be.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so what was the question? Are we on the air?
It's like, who is Aaron? Oh, wait, I got to do this in a pretentious way. Who is the great Aaron Lopresti?
You got to lean the right
Who
way.
are you? And where did this begin, this journey into comic books? If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Oh, I'd be a very old tree. I guess an oak, because I'm still standing. Well, I've been insulted by more editors that I've outlasted in this book. So I am an oak tree. Wow, where did I start? I started, I discovered comics when I started reading them regularly when I was 11. And that's kind of when I switched from wanting to be an animator to wanting to be a comic book artist. Because I thought they were the greatest things in the world, And I even at 11 years old or 10 years old when I started buying them regularly, I was buying them because of the art. I would sometimes buy subject matter, but if I didn't like the art in the book, I wouldn't buy it, And so that's when I kind of switched gears and started, drawing my own comics at home and that type of stuff. So I didn't break in until, well, what constitutes breaking in? Regular work or getting your first job?
Let's go first job, first comic book professional job.
I think it was 89 or 90. I had, I went to film school at USC and I thought I was going to do that. And then when I got out of film school and had no connections and realized I probably wasn't going to do that, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll go back to that comic art thing. And so I went to San Diego because I was living in LA at the time, and I did Overkill. I did a 22-page.
That's right. I remember that.
Spider-Man sample story, right?
Yeah.
I remember I showed it to Terry Cavanaugh, who was editing Marvel Comics Presents at the time, right? Which was creating a lot of work for new guys because they had 3 8-page stories they had to fill every month in that magazine for that book. So I showed him this 22-page Spider-Man story. He's like, 5 pages would have been enough, I'm like, yeah, but I had the whole story and it's so cool.
Well, it's called Overkill, so.
Yeah, well, I brought the Green Goblin back from hell. So that's, Norman Osborn. So that was kind of something I really wanted to do. So anyway, he said to me at San Diego, yeah, this looks pretty good. I can probably use you at some point. I took that as I'm hired, right? Well, I wasn't. And so I would, back then we didn't have the internet. And we had to actually call people on the phone. And so I would call and leave messages and, never get anything returned and all that stuff. And then I started making trips back to New York and then just like showing up at Marvel, right? With no appointment. Yeah. And I befriended the gal there that was the receptionist. And she started, once she got to know me, she started buzzing me in without an appointment. And so I was just like wander around, right?
Wow. You're the sweet talker. You're a sweet talker, man.
Oh, baby. And so, if the editor had his door open, I'd stand outside the door and, in my portfolio. And sometimes they'd wave me in. Sometimes they'd close the door in my face. I mean, it was good times. And but I tracked Terry down. I said, remember we talked at San Diego? And he's like, but he did give me something. He gave me a little Spider-Man story in Marvel Comics Presents 39. And if you really want to see how bad I was when I broke in, go look up that issue because it is horrific.
I seriously doubt that you were that bad.
No, dude, I was horrible. It's like, I'm surprised I'm still working. The first stuff I did was so bad for Marvel. But so that was the first gig. And then I did that and I thought, I'm in, right? No. I never heard it from anybody again for like 6 months. So it all started over again. I started doing the same stuff, and finally started grinding out. I think I did a kind of Dark Hawk annual.
I
And
remember Dark Hawk.
yeah, and so I did an annual for Nell Yomtov, and I was about to get, I thought, I was going to take over. Oh, hang on a second. I'm making stuff up. Okay, so I got regular work on What the humor title that they were doing.
Yes, I like that title. It was fun.
And I worked on that for a long time, and then I was trying to get off that and into superhero stuff, and that's when I got I did some Spider-Man backups for Danny Fingeroff and got fired like 2 or 3 times and begged.
Danny fired you?
Yeah. He basically
He's one of the sweetest guys in comics.
Well, he was very nice about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, this stuff sucks. So, no, he didn't say that, but he was like, Aaron, I just don't think I can use you anymore. I don't really think. And I'm like, look, here, let me do some more samples for you to prove to you that I can do better than what I've been doing. Because he was giving me these like backups that they didn't have any superhero stuff in it. It was just like Peter Parker and Aunt May. And I'm just like, and I felt so much pressure, from working at Marvel for the first time. Is like, if I, if I do anything wrong, I'm going to be fired. And of course, then I did everything wrong. And of course, it was self-fulfilling prophecy because I got fired. So I did some more samples. He goes, okay, these look really good. And I went, well, okay. And so that kind of got me back in good graces with him. I did a few more things. Then I did the Dark Hawk annual. I was going to take over She-Hulk for John Byrne.
Ooh, that would have been cool.
But then John Romita Sr., who apparently was still the art director, goes, no, this guy's not ready. And so they kind of pulled that out from underneath me, which kind of ticked me off. But they were right. I wasn't ready. And so then they were talking about maybe doing a Hawkeye miniseries. And that's when Malibu contacted me, the guys from Malibu, Dave Olbrich, Tom Mason, about doing Sludge. Well, actually, it wasn't about doing it. It was doing one of the books for them. It wasn't Sludge at the time. We switched to that. And they offered me almost twice as much as what Marvel was paying me. And I was like, yeah, I was like, okay, I'm going to drop some numbers here. Back in 89, 90, when I started working at Marvel, it was $85 a page for pencils. Okay. And they offered me 135.
Wow. And also this is West Coast versus East Coast, right?
Right.
Yeah. You were a West Coast guy, right?
Right. I live in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I took the money and the opportunity, which I think was probably a good thing and a bad thing, because I ended up staying at Malibu probably too long when they were going under, and be out of loyalty, because I really liked the guys there and I was really trying to help the company. But I probably should have jumped ship sooner when I had a little bit of name recognition with Marvel and DC. So it made it a little bit harder for me once I left Malibu to get up and running again with Marvel and DC.
But by the time you went back, you had your chops down, right? I mean,
yeah. The good thing about it was that they gave me total freedom. There was no pressure like, if you screw this up, you're out of here, pal. They were just like, yeah, do whatever you want. And I did. And so you can look at the Sludge stuff and see, although I don't think it's great in retrospect, you can tell that it was a next step for me. And it was the first time I did something that actually sort of looked professional.
Right.
And so then it kind of it gave me some confidence and stuff that I couldn't get at Marvel, because I just felt so much pressure and anxiety every time I picked up a pencil to do a job for Marvel at that point, that it was probably smart for me to get away from it and to do something for a smaller company where I was a bigger fish in a smaller pond, I guess.
Right. Do you still feel that pressure sometimes when you take an assignment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking over my shoulder, right? Aren't we all? It's kind of like, because there's so much talent and so many young, talented guys coming in, and the older you get, the less likely they are to want to use you. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. And so I'm constantly thinking, this has got to be my best work. The difference is now I'm equipped, mentally and talent-wise, developed talent-wise, to do that.
Yeah.
The pressure doesn't get to me. It's just like, it's an awareness that, I got to raise my game. I got to do better. And then I think I have the ability to do that. Whereas before I was kind of like, what does that mean? I'm drawing as good as I can. I don't know what it means to be better, and years of experience.
So a title like a character or working with a certain writer never, at this point in your career, builds the anxiety. You never get nervous about it.
I suppose if I was working with somebody like Frank Miller or something, I would probably feel a little bit of pressure because, you know, you never know what they're thinking. You know,
Right.
I did work when I left Marvel the second time and went over to DC, which was like 10 years ago now, I guess. Um, the first thing they gave me, because I went over to take over Wonder Woman, and the first thing they gave me was, well, they said Wonder Woman's not ready yet. Here's a do an issue of um, not Teen Titans. What's the Legion? And Jim Shooter was writing it, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't really, I don't know that I felt pressure, but I kind of was like, I didn't really know what to expect. So I got this script, right? And it's a 22-page comic. The script was 65 pages long. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, I was like reading a novel. I was like, are you kidding me? But I did my best to kind of, you know, and I thought it turned out really well. And I guess someone told me this secondhand that they had read an interview that he did with somebody online where he did not have kind things to say about my, you know, or it intimated that he wasn't happy with my interpretation of his script.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
Jim Shooter was quite a card, man. He was very opinionated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he made Marvel work in the 80s. You got to give him credit. But, you know, Mike Zeck tells that great story about how he almost killed him on Secret Wars. So making him redraw stuff and kind of micromanaging everything, which, you know, I'm sure can be, well, I know it can be super annoying. So.
Well, I remember Jim Shooter gave me his inker pep top, and he said to me, he's like, you never break. Well, actually, it was penciling too. He said, you never break border panels. He said, that's bad storytelling. He said, all your story should be contained in that panel. And then he said, no zipatone. He said, zipatone is a cop-out. He said, if you can't hatch it, you can't use zipatone. And so then I was like, yeah, but okay. Oh, because he used this analogy. He said, you know, when you go to a movie theater, the images do not break the movie screen. That's what he said. He said to me, the images do not break the movie screen. So I was thinking, you know what? If filmmakers could have objects break the movie screen, you don't think they would do that?
Hey, 3D, he was not right because 3D movies did.
No, and with comic books, if you do it right, I mean, sometimes if you break panels, it can be annoying and it could be bad storytelling. But a lot of times, you know, you can have people break panels in directions that you want the eye to go and to flow down, you know, throughout the page.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a distraction. It can be, but I remember him telling me that, and he's like, absolutely no zipatone. And my first job, it had a ton of zipatone on
it. Did he say anything, or did it just kind of like fly under the radar?
It just flew under the radar. But that was my kind of pep talk. That was the first conversation I had with him professionally at the Marvel offices. He said, "You don't break panels, and no zipatone." That's what it was. Yeah. And then you look at all the Japanese comics, and you're like, wait a minute, man, that's zipatone. Those guys have turned it into an art form.
Well, it's good to have rules. You have to have rules, but it's like, you know, like anything else, the rules are made to be broken. And if you have a good reason for breaking them, as long as you understand what the foundation is that you're working from,
yeah,
it's totally fine. You know, to sit there and say you can never do this or you never should do that is kind of silly, because there's always an exception. You know,
right.
There's a justifiable reason why you might do something. Someone else may not agree with you, because at some point all that gets sort of subjective. As long as you know, as long as it works to a certain degree, then it gets, you know, some of the gray areas get subjective.
Right.
But to kind of try and lay down hard, fast rules and say never do this and never do that and never do this is like, eh. So Jim, wherever you are, I'm sure he's watching right now. Exactly.
Salute. Oh, no, he was good for the time. He definitely was. The editorial staff was on it at that time. There was a great camaraderie at the studio, at the offices there. So I would go as a young artist. I would probably be there 3 times a year, because I always lived on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. So I would go maybe 3 times a year, hang out with people, you know, so they could see a face, so they learned that they could trust me and I was an okay guy. and all that other stuff. But I really liked it, going out and hanging out with those. I always wished I lived in New York City. Did you ever wish you lived?
Yeah, that was my dream. I mean, it was really weird because I was growing up. I mean, I was geared towards becoming a comic book artist. That's what I was going to do. In fact, I had this whole plan laid out. I was a big Wrightson fan growing up, huge Wrightson fan. And so I was like planning out my career based on what Wrightson did. It's kind of like be in comics for, 5, 6, 7 years, break out of comics, do art prints and portfolios and kind of be this self-sustained thing. Of course, all those guys came back into comics, 10 years later. But at the time I was thinking, so I'm going to move to New York, work in comics for several years, become a big name, and then, branch out on my own and do my own thing. That was kind of fun, right? And like I said, I got sidetracked and I ended up going to film school instead. But when I was 18, that was my plan. 17, 18 years old, that was my plan. And but so I've just been a frequent visitor to New York, but I actually never ended up living there. If things had worked out at Marvel initially and I hadn't gone to Malibu, I may have migrated there.
Yeah.
But as things worked out, it just never, and then people started using FedEx, and then it was kind of like, well, why do I have to live there? Why do I have to move to New York so I can bring the pages in when I can just ship them the pages?
So you remember going to the post office and shipping things back east, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, I don't know if you remember or not, but I had a studio started in '95 called Studio Source in Portland. And it was me, Terry Dodson, Matt Haley, Carl Kiesel, Ron Randall, Randy Emberlin, Rachel Dodson was in there. Later, Matthew Clark. I'm trying to remember everybody so I don't forget anybody, but I'm sure I did.
Oh, wait, was that the one in Portland?
Yeah.
I visited that office. That office was killer.
Yeah, we had that great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember the reason I brought that up was that Terry and I got pages done about the same time, and they had to go out FedEx, right? And we were pushing the deadline, at 5:00 drop off.
Right.
So we crammed into somebody's truck. I think it was Terry had this small truck, and I was crammed in the back, and we're driving downtown Portland to get to the FedEx place to dump off the FedEx. And this was 1995-ish. And I said to him, I go, wow, do you realize this is our first studio FedEx run, And so, yeah, it was, I got my only car accident I've ever been in trying to get to FedEx during an ice storm. Hit some black ice and split into somebody. And I was like, I'm never doing this again. Screw it. If it's a day late, so be it, because
it's not worth your life.
Yeah, exactly. And, but I always took it that way. As like I said I'm going to get this in today. It's going in today, and
yeah.
The
craziest FedEx story I have is, I worked with an assistant, and his father worked for one of the airlines. And I used to have Hackcheck Studios was in the South Bay. So we were maybe 5-10 minutes from LAX. So we were working one night. The book actually absolutely had to be done, right? So he's like, I can fly on standby at any time. He goes, because my dad works at the airline. And I said, so we could work till wee hours. And then he's like, yeah, let me talk to my dad. Let me see what the flights are. And so then we found out what our deadline time was. And so we worked all the way up to that time, put it in the box. He hopped on a flight, flew all the way to New York City, and dropped off the Federal Express box personally to Bob Harris in the X-Men office.
That is awesome.
So this is, you guys in the chat, man, this is gold. You know what? If you guys could tweet out, let everybody know that Aaron and I are talking, because we just cracked the ice here with the stories we're going to be able to tell for you guys. So if you could, tweet out, just social media, let people know, please, that we're here. And also, if you could and ring the bell for notifications, it'll help the algorithms and get more eyes on our chat here as well. So yeah, that's the level of dedication, right, Aaron?
I don't know if did you ever hear that Burke Brothers story about Bloom County? It was a great interview he did in some magazine years ago when they were still printing magazines. And I actually picked it up at a bookstore when they used to have bookstores still. And it was this interview. And basically what he said was that he liked to really kind of live life, right? So he would screw around for, 26 or, well, 3 weeks out of the month, right? And not do anything except whatever he wanted to do.
Right.
And then he would just like for 1 week would lock himself in his studio and crank out all these Bloom County strips, right? But he just said that many times, the deadline would be, let's say it was like the last day of the month. And he would be finishing his last strip, getting on the plane, drawing the strip on the plane, finishing it up. So he could literally take it into them and drop it off and meet the deadline, because he pushed his limits so far every month.
Yep.
He was all about living life and not, using the art so that he could live life instead of letting the art be his life.
Well, since I have you here, do you think part of it, because I've done the same thing and I've worked with a lot of artists that have done these things. Do you think, like, in lieu of, there's people that jump out of airplanes with parachutes, or they climb these crazy mountains, and they do these things for adrenaline rush. Do you think this is the comic book artist adrenaline rush? This is our version of Mount Rushmore, or jumping out of a plane, that we wait till the last possible minute. Yeah. And then like the adrenaline's pumping. You're like, yeah, I got to get this stuff done. I got to get it done,
I got a page over on the board right now that I'm supposed to be working on. So that answers your question. I think what gives me a rush is I've always been this way. I like publishing my own stuff. I don't know that necessarily I'd want to run a company, because I would be very bad at firing people. Yeah. I don't like doing that kind of stuff, but I do like publishing my own stuff. And I've been doing that practically since I broke into comics. And that sort of, I get a charge out of doing that stuff. And so, people are like, hey, let's go skiing. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to ski into a tree. But I'll go and frantically work to get this next sketchbook together so I can have it, to the printer and out by, the convention season. And that kind of stuff gives me a charge, which sounds kind of boring, I guess, probably to a lot of people. But
I don't know if people. This is how I dramatize it, right? I always say when people ask, like, how is it? What is comic books like? And I said, can you perform with a gun to your head every day? And they're like, what? And I'm like, that's kind of what it's like. So every day you have that kind of pressure. Like, are you going to get it done? Are you going to get it done? And you're like, you're not sure, because also, like, from day to day, week to week, month to month, you don't know what you're going to have to draw. You don't know what you're going to have to write or ink. So, one of the books could be in your wheelhouse, right? It's everything you know how to draw. But the next month or the next page could be, you have to design a whole race of aliens that never existed prior, so you have to
get paid extra for that. So
do you still get paid extra for that?
I said you don't get paid extra for that.
Oh, okay.
Like, that's part of the deal, right? It's not like
sometimes. Yeah, it depends on what you're creating, because I've had some creator-owned deals at Marvel where I created new characters and they had a contract. But most of the time it's...
Yeah, well, they're giving you a piece of the action if they do anything with it, but you're not getting, like, it's not an extra bonus in your page rate for designing a new villain.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. So, okay.
And then they'll never use those characters again, so they don't have to pay your residuals.
I know. Like, Dan Jurgens and I came up with a couple of really good villains, I thought, in our JLI run. And I'm like, where are the toys at, man? Where are my toys for these guys? So
yeah.
Somebody asked me a question here. It said, I would like to ask Mr. Lopresti what he thought about these new artists and these stylized art with influence of manga and new medias. What do I think about it? The one thing about comic art, there's nothing more important than style. And I don't care what anybody tells you. I'm a big substance guy, not a big style guy. I think that drawing is super important. But for the average reader and the average fan, style is everything. I mean, you could sit here and say, okay, well, who really drew better, John Buscema or Barry Smith? I would argue John Buscema was a better draftsman. But Barry Smith is 100 times more popular because his style was way more interesting and way more and new and different. Right. So I think I'm not a big manga fan at all. In fact, I hate it. But the way they do tech stuff, which I'm horrible at, but the way they do tech stuff is really cool.
Yeah, that's my major thing. I like all the Shiru stuff, like the Appleseed and Ghost and Shell. But the characters and the figure work, I don't think is that strong. But the technical aspect of the design work, oh my gosh, like Akira, yeah, those things are amazing to me.
Yeah.
And I'm influenced by the same, the technical aspects or just the design work. Yeah.
And I think you can always get something, out of someone else's work or another style of work. And I think we all do that. You take what you like and kind of discard what you don't and sort of try to adapt it to what you do. And can
I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
This is the way No, you can't. It's your show, Art. No, you can't.
See you in a few minutes.
All right, I'm gone. Cut. Lopresti's getting difficult. He's getting all heady.
Oh.
Yeah, but like style, back on style. It's an aesthetic. So when people ask me these type of questions at shows, I say for me it's the same thing as like an actor. There's a certain aesthetic that you might like in an actor. Like, oh, she's very pretty, but by your aesthetics, like everybody doesn't think the same thing is aesthetically amazing.
Right.
So you might think this person is very attractive, or you might think this guy is like, for some reason, the aesthetic and the way he fights or the way he moves or whatever is something that aesthetic you like. So then when you're an artist, do you think that when readers are reading, it's kind of like, in a way, you're like Tom Cruise, like your aesthetic is Tom Cruise, or your aesthetic is Sylvester Stallone, or whatever it is. So then, that's the aesthetic that people like about your work. So it's kind of like your characters have a certain look, you know what I mean? Like an actor would. Mm-hmm. And then, so all the Aaron Lopresti heroes look in a similar fashion. Like that's an actor, your characters are your actor. And then you get to move those around. Do you feel that that's a good analogy, or?
Actually, it is, but I hadn't really thought of it in terms of that. I mean, the movie connection I make is that as the artist, we're the director of the film, But in terms of that's interesting. We all really do sort of have a brand because we all have our own style, and even though you try and make your characters look different, they still have. Your personality, trademark personality in the character. It's unavoidable. Right. It's like no one's ever going to mistake Kevin Nolan's stuff or Mike Mignola's stuff or Wrightson or any number of guys that are heavy have a heavy style influence in their work. And I don't know how visible that stuff is to us as artists. I look at my stuff and I think, this could be better, or this isn't very interesting looking. And I'm sure that people looking at my work see it completely differently than I do. And
yeah, so, there's definitely an aesthetic. When you look at your work, Aaron, I can tell it from the pack. It stands out. And most of your lead actors, your heroes, they do have a certain aesthetic, a consistent aesthetic. One, I think we have to do that. We have to formalize to a certain extent to get deadline, hit deadline.
Yeah. Yes.
And then my next thing is when this is why I like the actor analogy, is because when a book goes from one artist to another, I always think of it as a different actor taking on that role. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I kind of don't like current comics where guys don't have long runs anymore on a specific title. And to me, if you have like a jam book, like you maybe have 2 or 3 different people working on one book just to make the deadline. Well, to me, unless all those guys are in the same like style wheelhouse, then it jumps so much that it seems like that lead guy, like let's just say it's Batman, doesn't seem like the same character with the next artist and then that other artist. So if you jump enough, I believe it's really glaring for the consumer and the reader that sometimes it won't even seem like the same character, based on how drastically the different artists, aesthetic is.
I think most readers and fans would agree that they don't like this sort of shifting of creative teams every 12 issues or whatever it is. And I don't really understand why that's happened in the last, it's really become a bigger thing in the last probably 8 or 9 years that, we don't want to keep anybody on a book too long. And I think that's what the readers want. If they like the creative team. If they don't, then obviously you got to make a change. And that's when the voice of the reader comes out and says, we don't like this, change it. But just to change it for the sake of changing it, which I think they're due to keep it fresh or whatever, the mentality is, I think that's a completely wrong approach.
I do too.
I think you want the same guy on there for as long as possible, because you get comfortable with this. If you like the style and you like the writing, you like the art, you get comfortable with it, and you have an expectation of what it's going to be every month. It used to be really jarring for me when, like, I was reading Keown on Hulk, right?
Right.
I really loved that stuff. But then there was like a fill-in issue, and you're like, eh. And even though I don't know who was doing, maybe Gary Frank was doing the fill-in issues or something. That doesn't mean that Gary Frank was bad. Gary Frank is quite good, but it's like, it's different, and so it wasn't what you were expecting. And so you're kind of like, okay. And then it's a fill-in issue, and then the story is generally a fill-in story.
Right.
Because they don't want to keep the continuity going while the main artist is off the book or whatever. And so I'm with you on that. I think longer runs, I think it helps us. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 25 years, and I've constantly run into people like, well, so what are you working on?
Exactly.
I did 2 issues of Swamp Thing, and then I did an issue of Plastic Man over here. And then, it's because you're not, what have you been doing since Wonder Woman? That was 8 years ago, was the last time I was on a extended run on a book. Well, except for JLI, I guess. Would have been right after that.
And how long ago was that? 8 years?
Yes, it was.
There you go. There's your 8-year mark. Yeah, I do, just to bring it back to the actor thing. Like, let's just say you're watching your favorite TV show. It's the same thing as, like, the guy that you're watching, they change the actor. So next week when you tune in, it's not that same guy. So if you're reading, if you're reading a certain book, you're actually reading that for that person's aesthetic. And this is where I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on and see how you feel about this, Aaron. Is I believe this is by design. I think the big two, Marvel and DC, are doing this by design because they don't want any superstars anymore. The only ones that have these longer runs, like Greg Capullo and some of these guys, are there's stars and then there's superstars. Mm-hmm. And so I believe it's because they can't do it to those guys. You know what I mean? Right. They can't go and say, hey, Greg, you're going to be drawing whatever book this month. Because Greg will just go, I'll just go do my own indie book, or I'll just go to Marvel, right, or I'll go wherever, and they'll treat me better. So I think they're doing that because in the Image years, there were superstars, man. The Marvel before the Image years, there were rock star comic book artists. This was insane stuff. And most of
them became that way because of the titles they were working on helped.
Yeah, but the thing is, Marvel didn't want to acknowledge that it was the artists.
Right.
So the big debate was how much of it is the artist and how much of it is the characters. And I think if you ask most people, a lot of it is the Marvel characters, but it's those actors, it's those A-list actors that you have portraying those characters.
Well, surely McFarlane, was doing Spider-Man totally different than anybody had ever done him before. So, right, even though he was on Spider-Man, which made him super visible, it was still his work that made him popular, that he could go and do Image and still sell, 1 million copies of Spawn or whatever he sold.
Yeah, he created a new language for the character. The webbing and some of that visual language, he changed it. Mm-hmm. And so that was always the big debate. The big debate was, are they the IPs or are they partially the creative people that work on them? And I know that Marvel really felt burned, and their stock went down when the 7 Core and all of us supporting guys left Marvel. Their stock went down. So I know it hurt them. So I believe that the big two then decided we're never going to really create, superstars again.
Well, I agree with that. And I think they pretty much came out and said that. They restructured the royalties so that they would never have to pay that much money out again on a book that sold really well. Because those guys made millions on royalties. They totally restructured the royalties because they never imagined books would sell that much.
Right.
That they would actually end up screwing themselves on their own royalty plan. Let me take a second here. There's some people have said some nice stuff about me over here on the live comments. I just want to say thank you very much. Flyflocks Pro, appreciate it. There's some other ones up here too that thank you. That was very kind. I just want to make sure I'm reading your comments, so I appreciate it. You're not like screaming in the void.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm not looking at the comments as well. So if you have questions for Aaron or myself, then feel free in the chat because these are rare opportunities to.
I am looking at the scroll here and seeing the questions and grabbing them.
Yeah.
Here.
This explanation. The success of some artists like Joe Mad and other superstars. Yeah, I think Marvel, do you remember this period? After or during the Image boom, Marvel started giving guys exclusives. So that's how they were. So they weren't giving them necessarily more royalties. They were giving them like limited exclusives. So if they signed an exclusive, they got X amount of more money. Yeah.
Couple grand or whatever at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I would say this to Tone in there that there's your popularity as an artist is what we were talking about. Part of it is your responsibility of how good you are, right? Or maybe a better way to put that is how appealing your work is to the fan base, because you can be really good but not necessarily have a style that people gravitate to, so it's it just kind of falls in the pack with everybody else's stuff. But it's also, you can only gain so much notoriety excuse me, if you're working on small books. I mean, that's just a fact. And if you're working on X-Men, like Joe Mad, who brought a really cool I don't want to say cartoony because that sounds insulting, but more like an animated kind of style to his work. And that's one of the reasons it was very popular, but it was also, he had a platform that he had like the best-selling book he was working on every month, so more people saw him. So I think that goes hand in hand. So I wouldn't say that, that X-Men made Joe Mad a superstar. I would say that he made himself a superstar by the work he was doing, but he wouldn't have been able to get to superstar status if he hadn't been on a book that was visible to a huge number of people in the industry.
Right.
You can't expect people to go hunting necessarily. People read books that they like, okay, and characters that they like. And if I'm on X-Men, that's great. But if I'm down on, Hawkman and Adam Strange, which I did for, DC a few years ago, unless you're a Hawkman fan, are you really going to search that out? Even if you like my stuff, are you going to go through all those titles and go, gee, I wonder what Aaron's working on this month?
Right.
Because you don't know where to find me. So you're forced with looking through, 300 books every month, trying to figure out where to, what issue I might be doing. I used to do this with, how come we're not split screen anymore?
Yeah, I'm trying to screen share some of our work, but it's just kind of going over my image. So I apologize for the visuals, but keep going. I'm going to try to figure this out, Aaron.
Okay. It says your browser has blocked your screen. Click the screen icon and address the bar access to reload the page.
Yeah, I thought if I went...
Okay, so I'm still on, but it's just all art all the time, basically.
Right, but can you see any of our detective stuff on the screen?
No, I can only see you.
Okay. So let me go back and see if I can figure this out. Well, keep going. I'm sorry.
I forgot what we were talking about.
We're talking about Joe Mad and and stuff like that.
See, technology once again, man, it destroys us. Oh yeah, so I think it is. This is addressing a question someone posted up there. that it is important. Unfortunately, there's only like, 10 titles that are, super well read, and we're all fighting to get on those titles, or at least we were when you're younger. At this point, it's kind of like I just kind of take what I can get. And, it's more important to me to enjoy what I'm working on than necessarily work on a title that I think might, boost my visibility if it's on, if it's on something, or if I don't like the writer or whatever. So, so it's funny how your priorities change as you get older. When you're young, it's kind of like, I got to get on Spider-Man, or I got to get on X-Men, or, now it's kind of like, who's going to write something interesting, that'll be fun to draw. And to me, what character that is sort of secondary.
I click that.
Unless it's Plastic Man, then of course, I'm all over it. I have this weird ability to pick. There's this wild stuff. Oh, there it is. To pick the stuff that nobody wants to read. It always seems to be the stuff I want to work on the most. So I haven't done myself any favors, that's for sure.
So, so you can see the visuals now.
Yes, I can see ManBat.
Yes,
Detective Comics that we did.
Yeah. So, yeah. How long ago was this? Was this New 52 or after?
It was during that Gotham, where Batman was wearing a white suit and Catwoman was wearing a white suit. What was that called? Gotham Knights, I think it was called.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was about 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now.
Yeah. So look what I got to work. Look at the person I got to work with. Look at this. Aaron, you're amazing.
Thank you. That was, well, I mean, thank you. I appreciate you saying that, but you did a terrific job on, that's a great page. I love that page. I kept that page. Still have it in my flat files.
I kept a couple of the cool Batman images as well, which I'll get to. So, I can't see the chat anymore. So if you want to keep up with the chat, I think Edwin asked you about create your own stuff. If you're going to crowdfund, you want to go into that while I'm showing some of these images?
Yeah, it says, I had to step away. Is Aaron going to crowdfund a book? Edwin, yes, I am going to crowdfund a book. My Garbage Man series that I did for DC, which again got buried in an anthology book. It's wild because that was originally going to be its own series. Because when I first went over to DC, Dan DiDio asked me I talked to him about doing some writing and stuff, and he brought up, he said, well, we need a monster comic to sort of replace Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing was at Vertigo and Vertigo wouldn't let DCU proper have it back, which seemed really silly to me. I'm like, you're the same company, just go take it. Well, it doesn't work that way. There's contracts and all this kind of stuff. So they had no Swamp Thing, and he wanted a Hulk or a monster character as part of the regular DCU. So I created Garbage Man for him. And originally it was supposed to be its own series. But then he came back and said, okay, now we're going to do a miniseries. Okay, that's fine. He's like, no, we're going to run it as a backup in the Batman books. And I went, okay, well, that'll work too, because that's your best-selling book. So everybody will see it, so that's fine. Then like, nah, now we're going to, it just kept changing. And eventually it showed up in a couple of obscure miniseries anthology books that not a lot of people saw. Well, I finally got the rights back to that character, and there's 120 pages of material that's never been collected in a trade. And it does have Batman in some parts of it, not a lot of it, but like 8 or 9 pages. So I have to remove him. But I'm going to reprint that stuff with new material and a whole new Garbage Man story. And I'm going to crowdfund that, hopefully launching it in October. I've got a YouTube channel now, so you can check that out for information. My Facebook page, my Twitter, and my web page, my blog on my website. I try to keep information about that on there. But yeah, to answer your question, that, and then Kit Carter, which you can see behind me over there. And I've got some other stuff I want to do as well. So we'll see how it goes. But the Garbage Man is going to be the first thing, because there is a built-in audience. There was, the readership on those books was about 17 to 19,000. And so I'm not exactly starting from scratch. There are people that are actually aware of that character. And so that's what I thought. And plus, it's a collection. There's some new material, but it's not all new material. So the budget isn't as high on it as it would be if I was doing something that was completely new and had to do, 48 pages of new material. So I love that page a lot, or Killer Croc's getting crushed there in that.
Yeah, and Ivy was throttling him. Yeah, this was a great story too. I enjoyed this.
John Layman wrote that. Yeah, where he's like, it's stuck in the asylum.
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. Let's see. Death of Hawkman art was amazing. Thank you very much, Render. I appreciate that.
If we go long enough, we might outlast EVS and whoever else was streaming. So if you guys just
hey, keep talking, baby.
Yeah. And if you guys could, tweet out and let people know we got the great Aaron Lopresti here on Hacks Chat. So this is a rare opportunity to ask Aaron questions and to get to see his upcoming book, which is Garbage Man, which I do have images from. So you guys will get a little preview of Garbage Man. So
yeah, and I'm doing tutorials on my YouTube channel on drawing the very first page of the new story. So if you go and check those out as they develop, you'll actually be able to see the entire first page of the new story from layout to finish. Here's another question. Aaron, what was it like to work on JLI with Juergens, drawing for a writer who had designed the lead character? Working with Dan was fantastic because Dan and I were about the same age, so we have similar tastes. And I think we both sort of wanted the JLI to kind of have like a Silver Age feel to it, and I think it did. And he was writing big superhero stuff because that's what I wanted to draw, and we figured that's what people really want to read, right? What was it? Stan Lee's old formula for Marvel was you have 16 pages of action and 6 pages of soap opera, right?
Yeah.
The action gets people to buy the comic. The soap opera gets it coming back next month, right? And I think that's kind of been flip-flopped a lot in recent years, where it's just all soap opera and no superhero action. And it's kind of like, I got into comics to draw superheroes doing fun, exciting things, not to draw people sitting around a coffee shop whining about their lives. That's what we do in real life, right? No
one wants to see that.
I don't need Captain America crying.
You know what they want to see? They want to see Batman jumping onto Clayface.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they want to see right there. Getting after it, man.
I think I have. Yeah, I do have this page.
Yeah, you do. Can't remember what page I sacrificed to give that one up, but I have a weird taste, man. When I was working on Ms. Marvel, right? Brian Reed, the writer, was like, "What do you want to draw?" And I'm like, MODOK. So he did this whole storyline with MODOK, and then when Matt Ryan was inking me on that, and when we split up pages, I took all the MODOK pages. He was taking all these great, Ms. Marvel pages, and I'm like grabbing all the MODOK pages. Sleepwalker, I drew Sleepwalker in there. I always thought was cool, and so I was taking all the Sleepwalker pages, and I'm like, what an idiot I am. But,
yeah, I felt like when we were divvying these pages up, like I had just put a quarter in the slot machine and then pulled the handle, and it's like, boom, here you go, Art. Here's a page, a splash page with Batman and Clayface.
I don't know why. There was something else in that issue that I had to have, and I took it first. It might have been that ManBat page. It's just because I look at stuff and I'm like, oh, I really like this page, and there may not be a good rhyme or reason for why I do, but it's like something really. There's something really cool about the page personally. So I get that page and I give away all these great pages that, everybody else thinks are cool. And I'm like, no, but I got this great page where ManBat is crying,
Hey, you know what? For the record, I do the same thing. Yeah, it could be like a series of hatches. I'm like, oh my gosh, I nailed it on that. And so all of a sudden I see that page through like a weird goggles that it's like, oh man, I'll never hatch like that again. I need to keep this page.
It's true.
It's weird.
We've been on an hour already. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So you want to go maybe another half hour? Yeah,
let's keep going. We need to talk. We need to pump up Garbage Man a little bit. Show some Garbage Man images.
Yeah, I think this is the last image. So I just wanted to show people, what you and us as a team are capable of. And I think we absolutely knocked it out of the ballpark with this Batman detective. And also, Batman is my all-time favorite character. And my whole career, 35 years, I've always wanted to do a run on Batman. And until I got to work with you on Detective, I didn't really have a run on any of the meaningful books like Detective or the Batman book itself. So
Really?
thank
That's
you for
amazing.
wanting to work with me. I've done books that had Batman in them, but never the Batman books. So
Yeah, that's the only 3 issues of Detective I've ever done, was those 3 that we worked on. So
yeah,
no, it was more than I was excited to have you.
yeah, this was a bucket list job for me. So thank you for letting me work with you. And so here we go. This is it. This is the big story here.
Yes.
This is Garbage Man.
What can I tell you about this, and what can I ask you about? Because I do have some questions for you, Art. But
Well, first, why don't you explain a little bit about like Garbage Man's origins, like a little bit about the story, so people have some context.
Well, he was a lawyer, Richard Ethan Morse, which I cleverly, if you look at it, it's remorse, R.E. Morse. So, which plays kind of a role into his character as things go along. But he's a detective. He's a lawyer working for Titan Pharmaceuticals, and he's handling. He's working for a law firm that handles Titan Pharmaceuticals, which is this huge pharmaceutical company. And he comes across some stuff that isn't really jiving, right? And so he's trying to get to the bottom of it, and he goes out to their plant, trying to kind of reconcile some money that had been paid to government officials and that type of thing, or at least he's starting to figure out that's what's going on. And he's not a an Aaron Brockovich or anything. He's just trying to do his job and figure out, well, wait a minute, where's this money going to, and who's responsible for this, and shouldn't we be keeping a record of it, kind of thing. He wasn't, thinking, oh, they're doing something, illegal, and I need to get to the bottom of it. But because he's in there snooping around and asking the wrong questions, they determine that he's better off out of the way than learning any more. And so there's this kind of mad scientist character there that is doing all these illegal experiments, and he's doing them mostly on like homeless people and stuff that they'll just drag off the street, and he'll experiment on, and government contract stuff, super soldier type stuff. And so he injects, they take Richard, the lawyer, and injects him with some one of his compounds to see how it works. And it starts to work, and then it doesn't, and he starts mutating and all this kind of stuff. And so the doctor's like, yeah, this ain't working. And so what he does is blows the entire lab, and so there's no trace of Richard, the lawyer, or anything that they were doing. So this scientist, this evil scientist, is so cold. There's a couple lab assistants in there. He locks him in there and just closes the fire door and blows the lab up.
Well, you don't want any, like loose lips sink ships, right?
Right, exactly.
You gotta get rid of everybody, yeah.
So basically what happens is he gets blown out the back of the building, and they have this basically a dumping ground, a toxic dumping ground back behind their chemical plant, right? And he gets blown to bits, but then because of this formula he was given, he sort of reanimates with the garbage and the dirt and everything, the chemicals that are back there, and emerges as Garbage Man. And so then he's got to get revenge against Titan Pharmaceuticals, or at least bring them to justice, and all the while trying to figure out how can he possibly become human again. How did this happen? Can it be reversed? And there's it's kind of like the way it was set up through this anthology was, it was kind of a monster of the month kind of premise, where he fought every storyline there was a different monster that he was facing off with, and most of them were products of this experimentation that had gone on in this laboratory, and plus his personal life what's going on there? Where did he come from?
Well, let me back up for a minute. You're going to sell some books with monster on monster fights.
There's plenty of that, man.
Yeah, people love that stuff, man.
But the one thing I'm proud about is that it has a real heart and soul to it. So it's not just Hulk versus Thing all the time. There's like I said, there's 16 pages of action, there's 6 pages of soap opera, but the soap opera is really meaningful stuff, I think. And you can get something out of that. There's a real moral to the whole story, and it kind of comes full circle. It went 120 pages of material, right? So that's all going to be collected, and it's never been collected before. It's never been traded before. And this is going to be in a hardcover, an oversized hardcover. The book's going to be probably about 144 pages, and there's about 9 to 11. I have to go back and look at my notes, but I think there's 9 to 11 pages that Batman appears. And so I'm going to be entering in my own characters. Some of those pages are going to be redrawn, featuring my own characters. And so I'm really sort of launching my own universe by, out of necessity, because I have to bring in some characters to replace Batman. And so where the series ended with DC was really kind of a starting point for the next adventure of Garbage Man, which then we will take a look at in this collection. So there's going to be one brand new story in there, plus all the new material added to the old story. So we're looking at, and there'll probably be some gallery stuff in there as well.
Please tell me that there's going to be a sketch section.
There is.
Oh yes, like your working drawings and things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a sketchbook. There'll be a sketchbook part at the end. So it's going to be 144 plus pages in that neighborhood. So it's going to be a good sized book, and it's going to be published at 10 by 13, which is, if you look at the European hardcover collections, that's generally those oversized. That's going to be about the size it is, because this is some of the best artwork, and maybe the best artwork I've ever done in my career. And so I really want to showcase that a little bit on a bigger format rather than a smaller size format. So those are my plans right now.
This is you writing, penciling, inking, right, and creating.
Well, creating, writing, and penciling. This picture I inked myself, but Matt Ryan inked the series, and so he will be inking the extra story in there as well. And I got the colorist John Cleese back, because I wanted the continuity, from the original series, since it's all going to be bound together in one volume.
Yeah.
So, so I'm bringing those guys on board to, and I'm working with Matt right now on the book that I'm working on for DC, and have been working with him for a while.
Well, I really like the way Matt, his inks look over you. So I do think he's the guy. So
yeah, well, he inks, like I say, he inks me like I would ink me if I was more patient.
Yeah.
So he never surprises me like, oh, what the heck are you doing there? It always looks exactly the way I want it to look, or I imagine it to look. So we get along really well. And but yeah, he's a really underrated inker. But those are my plans, and hopefully I'll get that launched in October is my goal. But now here's some questions for you. Tell about this pre-launch page, because you've got one up right now.
Yes.
For your project, right?
Yes.
So explain to me what that is and how that works, or what the idea is behind that.
Are you going Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or are you trying to figure out which?
I'm leaning Indiegogo. I'm curious what I did a thing on Facebook and on Twitter about what people thought about either platform. And it was like funny. All the Twitter people were like Indiegogo, all the Facebook people were Kickstarter. And they were like vehemently attached to it. And they're like, oh, if you go Indiegogo, I won't support you. And I'm like, why? Why aren't you supporting the project? What does it matter what platform you're using? Indiegogo looks good to me, because they've now set, like, what do you call it? You can set I keep wanting to say limit, but limit's not the word, for how much money you need to make before you go forward.
Right.
Anyway, that's what Kickstarter does, right? I've got to make $30,000 or this won't go forward. Well, Indiegogo used to be, you just, you'll take whatever money you get and you can go forward if you want to.
Right.
I want people to feel like there's a chance that I would take the money and run. So I'm setting a goal. There you go. And if I don't hit that goal, I'm not going to do the book. But the thing on Indiegogo I liked was you can keep the back door open, so to speak, so people can come in late and keep ordering.
If you go into in demand, there's a store. Yeah.
Right. And it seems like comic book projects that are specifically comic book projects are doing really well on Indiegogo right now. And that seems to be where the energy is for the comic stuff that like you guys are doing. And the numbers look like, people are doing good numbers and stuff. So, and the other thing that scared me was that someone had brought up, I was watching all these videos, right, on YouTube about Kickstarter.
Right.
Indiegogo, what do you think? And somebody had brought up a point. He said, the Kickstarter stuff is because they don't charge you until the end of the campaign, that people change their mind, and that doesn't necessarily reflect in the final number that it shows. So then you get they release the funds to your bank account so you can start working on the project, and then you realize you don't have as much money as they said you did because a lot of people canceled their orders, and you didn't know that. And now you're like, well, wait a minute, now I don't have enough budget to actually do the project.
Right.
So at first I was against the idea of them at Indiegogo charging right up front before there was a product because there was no goal limit. But now that there's a goal limit, I feel that the fans are more protected.
Right. But if you feel bad, I mean, you can always, you can return their funds. It's not like you don't have access to that. So if you did feel bad, like you weren't going to put out the book or something, there's still a way that you could directly, refund them. Right. So that's still open, if that's a concern of yours.
Okay. So but my feeling right now is Indiegogo. So we'll see. Here's the other thing. When you guys offer incentives on there, okay, I'm looking down at my notes. Sorry for the top of my head.
I got to read this. The Comics Legend says, "Will Garbage Man fight the Toxic Avenger?" Are you gonna make some phone calls now, Aaron?
Well, hey, if I could actually get the first one funded and they say, "Hey, I'll do more Garbage Man," then you start talking about crossover stuff, right? Yeah. When you're doing, you didn't explain the pre-launch page. So what's the purpose of the pre-launch page?
The pre-launch page is to try to get as many people and as many eyes on the campaign before you go live. So let's say, like right now, I think Chrono is at 150 people, which I want to get it. I really want to get about 300 people, but I don't know if that's possible. But I'm going to plug that stuff later. But the idea is I have 150 people right now that are signed up for the pre-launch, meaning that, well, hopefully that's 150 people that will back right off the bat when you go live with the campaign. So the thing that you really want to do is you want to get as much eyes on the campaign and as many backers the first day, because that's going to change your algorithms and that's going to throw you up to the top of the Indiegogo, their website, and what they promote, what they say is hot at that moment. So the quicker you can do that, the better. And also, for me personally, it gives you a little bit of confidence because you can do very well, Aaron, if you get 1,000 people to back your project.
Oh yeah.
If you get 1,000 people to back your project, you're in the 60, 70, maybe depends on what the price of your book is. You're in the 100,000, well, maybe 80,000, 70, 80,000 range that you can get. And so then all of a sudden, if you can get, I don't know, that's why I wanted 300. So if you could get even close to a quarter of what you need as far as backers right up front, then you can go in with a certain amount of confidence. You know what I mean? Like you can go, like for personally, you think that's a third of what I need, or that's a quarter of what I need, or however many people you can get and eyes you can get on that with the signups. And also what you do for the signup is you offer exclusives. Like I've been thinking about exclusives over the weekend. So I have some cool exclusives that I'm going to be announcing on my pre-launch page this week. So then the people that pre-launch or sign up, they're the only ones that are going to have access to these things. So then what you're doing is you're giving them back something in the process, either a tier that no one else will have access to, that they'll have to, back, or like freebies that nobody else will get. So that's for their loyalty, for their coming in early and supporting you, giving you that peace of mind, Aaron. That's what they're getting in return. So I hope I answered that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay, now when you add, like, you have your different tiers, right?
Yeah.
So let's say you have the regular edition, then you have like the signed and numbered edition, and then
Evercold says Art has the wise beard. Yeah, Aaron has the
great too. It's just not quite as thick. So
you
you've got a mountaintop longer than I have.
Aaron's a beatnik.
Okay, so let's say, Leah, you got a limited edition print, right? That's going to go with one of the tiers. Now, do you say limited edition print? Do you actually show the print, or do you kind of hang it back to say as a surprise, or do you just kind of say this is what you're getting? Is it smarter to do that, or is it better to kind of tease it?
I think it's all preference. For me,
what about you guys?
Yeah, actually, that's good.
Before you buy it, or do you want to be surprised and just trust the guy that you're going to get something cool?
Yeah, for me, like even stuff that you're doing on your YouTube where you're fairly transparent, you're showing the process of drawing and putting this book together. For me, hey, Kyung Lee is here. Yeah. And he's got oh, you met him in San Diego. He was the guy I was hanging out with.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a crowdfund book too. He did very, very well. And I think he's in fulfillment right now. So his book is done and he's shipping them out. So for me, I think the more transparent, the better. So I like to show people pages that are being done. I like to show them what they're getting, because they're also taking a big chance. And there's two reasons I'm doing this. Is one, because the Diamond catalog, they give you a picture this big to advertise your book and a paragraph that's smaller than that. You know what I mean? Like it's a 3-line paragraph that you have to sell your entire book with. And so
look at this.
I always that's good for numbers. That's good for numbers. All right, you guys tweet out. We got a dog in the chat.
Oh boy. She's clicking around. She wants me to put her up in her chair, and I'm like, I'm not walking over there to give her the chair. So she's getting to sit in my lap here for the rest of this.
So that's our numbers are going up right now. You're selling books.
Excellent. Hey, okay. So here's the next question.
Let me finish. The more you can show, the better. And that's just how I feel about it. So some people like to tease things more, but I don't. And like I said, because of like the Diamond catalog and stuff, I think that retailers have to buy books flat out with knowing very little about the book. But one of the things we can do, Aaron, you and I, with our YouTube channels and our media, our platforms, is we can show them this book being made, which DC and Marvel cannot do. They can't do that.
Right.
So these are things that we can do uniquely different than they can. So that's why I like being as transparent and showing as much up front.
Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so when you get these, like if you hit certain numbers, right? Some guys will unlock incentives, I guess they call them.
Yes.
Okay. So do you reveal those prior? Like if we hit $40,000, this will happen. If we hit 50, or do you wait and say, if you hit $40,000, I'll reveal this incentive, and then you reveal it?
You can do both, but for me, I think it's good to show up front. Like at least, you don't want to be like, I don't know, big-headed, like 100,000, we're going to offer this, but do something modest. Do something like at 30,000, we're going to upgrade the paper, or at 30,000, we're going to do a different.
I'm already upgrading the paper, buddy. Okay, I'm starting up the top.
On top, yeah. But I'm just saying that.
No, I know what you're saying.
If you throw those in early, they get to see what you have in mind as far as a destination, the ultimate book. So then they get to help you create that ultimate book at every threshold, at every stretch goal. That they get to see you hit those, and then they get something in return, and then you get to make a bigger and better ass book. As those things move forward.
They're part of the process of creating that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. So they feel like they're part of the book, because the way I look at this is we're movie makers, right? And so to make a movie, you need producers, and you need banks, and you need people to fund, or you can't make the movie. So what we're doing basically is we're trying to woo people into possibly, investing in our movie, our book.
Makes perfect sense. Okay, here's a really sort of boring question now. How do you handle foreign shipping? Because I know if you're shipping,
that's a loaded question, man.
If you're shipping in the U.S., right, and you figure out your budget and say, okay, if I sell 1,000 of these books, okay, just for math's sake, you say, and I mail a medium mail, which would be the cheapest way to go. It's going to cost me $5 a book to mail. Okay, actually, I know that for a fact because I already did the my homework on that. So if I've got, but that totally throws out the window someone from Denmark, and I've got a guy in Denmark that I know will probably buy one of these books. So it's like, does Indiegogo or Kickstarter, do they allow you to set up some sort of calculator? So when people are paying, they say, okay, I'm from Denmark. Well, postage is going to be $20, not $5. No, they don't.
Sadly, no.
So how do you factor that in?
It's a crapshoot. So I would say, go to your post office and find as many different regions as you think that you're going to ship to. Mm-hmm. And then go to the post office and find out what your media mail book, and then also bring a facsimile of your book so they can weigh it.
Sure.
And then, like, with the packaging and everything, so they can get it as fairly accurate account of what it is the product is going to weigh, how it's going to be shipped, and where. And usually they'll help you. They'll weigh it, and then they'll give you
I'm not talking about determining the price. I'm talking about how do you determine it into your budget if you don't know how many.
That's what I'm telling you, is that you, one, you get that, so you kind of know. It's a crapshoot because, like, say it's Denmark. You said Denmark. There might be 3 major regions within Denmark that they'll ship to. So each one of those regions within that country could be uniquely different as far as pricing, shipping prices.
Right, but if you don't know how many foreign orders you're going to get, how do you set a mail budget that you have to hit?
Right. So that's I'm kind of giving you information to get to that final final answer. So I'm not giving you the answers quick enough.
I don't know where you're going, but I want information now.
Aaron's like, I need it now, and I want it easy. Yeah, there's no easy answers, man. There's no easy answers, because the only thing, in a nutshell, if you want the quick answer is find out what these different regions are going to be. Canada, Mexico, Europe, different key places. Find out what that's going to cost, and then average that out, and then add money to it. Add as much money as you think is going to happen, because the sad thing is it's either going to cost you money on the back end as far as shipping, or it's going to be passed to the consumer. So as a person that's putting this together, you have to make that moral decision if you're going to benefit the consumer, or you're going to try to not so much benefit yourself, because you're not looking at it as like, I'm going to make money off them. You're just looking at it as an average. You're trying to average out the shipping prices so that you don't end up having to pay out of your pocket. And there are a lot of people, Aaron, this is the key to a successful crowdfund, is how well you can figure the shipping out. Because a lot of people, and you've probably heard the stories already, a lot of people lose everything in the shipping. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's the best I can do unless you have more specifics.
Well, no, I mean, I was talking to Dan Brereton, who does his stuff on Kickstarter, right? But he's not doing comics as much as he's doing art books.
Right.
And he was like, I hadn't even thought of this, because I for some reason I was thinking there has to be something on the site that when you purchase the book that it says, okay, it's $10 shipping or whatever, right? But he was saying, factor in your shipping costs into your goal, right? So let's say my goal to print this book is $25,000, right? Well, but now I've got to figure in, okay, well, how much is shipping going to cost for all these books, and then add that into my goal, right? So I don't at the end am out money or losing money, or on the deal with shipping. So it's easy if everybody's in the U.S., right? You can say, okay, it's $5 to media mail to Florida, which is as far away from me as you can get.
Right.
So I'll charge everybody $5 for shipping, right? But now, like I said, you may get 50 orders from all over Europe or all over the world, right? They're all going to be, $15 to $25 to ship, right?
Exactly.
And so, or maybe more. Maybe you get 100 orders and really screw up your. So as I'm trying to figure out my goal limit, it's like, God, I was at about 23 to 25,000, which I thought that's reasonable. I can get that. I can raise that much. But now if I have to add shipping on top of that into my goal, now suddenly that pushes my goal up to $30,000 or more, depending on how much I try to factor in, overseas shipping. So those are kind of because I was hoping that basically it was, you didn't have to figure that into your goal limit, that when people ordered, they would just be automatically charged whatever you told them to charge for shipping, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah. So you're not talking about within the tier adding the shipping price in, right? Or are you? So it'd be like book plus whatever, and that would be the total in that tier?
But there's an argument against that too, because if your book is, say...
But go ahead.
Oh, no.
Don't do that. But go ahead.
My intuition tells me Garbage Man is a 450 book, 10% to 15% orders will be international. It better be 750. Really, it better be 750, Edwin, or I'm not going to hit my goal. But anyway, so if you look at this hardcover, right, you say, okay, I'm going to charge $35 for this hardcover. It's 150 pages. That's about, the average price. If you got from DC, if you bought a hardcover with that many pages, that's about what it would cost, right?
Yeah.
So you charge $35, and everybody says, okay, I'll pay $35. But now you got to say, if you do it on your tier, you say, well, plus it's $5 shipping or $10 shipping, whatever it is, right? And so now it becomes a $45 book, which even though they'd be paying the ship that anyway, it seems a lot more painful to say, oh, this book is now $45 instead of $35. Because sometimes you, as a consumer, you add the shipping as an afterthought. You don't really think about it as the cost of the book.
Right.
But when I sit there and tell you, it's like buying a car someplace where there's sales tax. Here's the price of the car. Oh, there's $1,000 tax on that too.
Right.
They don't tell you the car is $15,000 plus, including tax. They tell you it's $14,000 plus tax. At the bottom. And so I don't know which. You don't want to scare people off with a price tag that maybe is higher than they want to spend, but at the same time, you got to figure out how you're going to handle that shipping.
Right. And trust me, I think Chrono was, I did Chrono the second. So I crowdfunded 3 different times, 2 on Kickstarter and 1 on Indiegogo. And so these are issues that I went back and forth, because they almost feel like they're moral issues. You know what I mean? Like what's right and what's wrong. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, if you look at it just as a business standpoint, when you go buy something at the supermarket, you buy something anywhere, there's tax, right? So as long as you know as a consumer that there's tax that's going to be included, you're not deceiving them. And as long as that they can find out that information, like it's 8%, it's 6%, it's whatever their state tax or whatever is, then they know going into it that they need to add X amount. So usually in the tier, it'll say the book, and then it will say plus shipping. And then once they click in and they go to checkout or whatever, or if you want to be right up front, you can put it, once they click on that tier, then they can find out exactly what that shipping is going to cost them. But you don't show it up front. You know what I mean? You just have the
right. Does it allow you when they click to that, say, okay, I'm going to buy the book, and then it shows the shipping charges? Does it allow you to go U.S. and international, 2 different prices, so that they can shoot? Oh, okay, so you can do that then, and
yeah. So you can do domestic, and then you can do international, but international doesn't let you break it up with like Europe or Australia or Mexico or you got
to pick the worst case scenario, and
you have to find a middle ground of the what it's going to cost you. So let me go to the chat. There's a lot of people helping out here, and if you don't know, Aaron, Edwin Boyette is he has an indie show on YouTube, and he highlights indie, upcoming indie projects and things like that. And he does buy my book, and
My dog.
he does a lot of the math and helps out a lot of new creators with their crowdfunding platforms and stuff like that. So if there's anybody in the chat, go check out Edwin, not right now, but check out his YouTube station or channel. And so when I post his stuff up in the chat here, highlight it. That's why I'm doing that. So I know, Aaron, you might not know Edwin, but Edwin Boyette, Aaron Lopresti, Edwin Boyette. So he knows a ton of this stuff. And I think I saw, where was it? Kyung Lee on Indiegogo. You can set domestic and international shipping fees. Don't skip on shipping. Yeah. So sometimes what people do, Aaron, and this is all going to come down to how you feel and how your own way of conducting business. Like, I guess it's morality, but some people, what they do with the international is they overcharge. So
right,
you find your middle, and then you overcharge. So what happens is, in the big scheme of things, what you hope is that it will all break even. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Canada might be cheaper, or certain places in Canada might be cheaper than Denmark.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then you find that kind of middle ground. And I think people, for the most part, understand, especially international backers, because there's no science to it. Because I remember having a conversation, because I did have an issue with this, Aaron, and I contacted Kickstarter about this, and I said, is there any way that I can set regions? Like this is Europe, or this is certain parts of Europe, or this is Canada, or this is Asia, or wherever. And they said no. And then they actually encourage you to go a little bit high on that, because it's either that or you're going to lose money. And what people need to realize, crowdfunding too, is the profit margin on a lot of these books isn't quite as high as you think. And also, just to give everybody the heads up in the chat, is when that total goes up, that total is with shipping. So when you see somebody puts up $100,000, a third of that could be in shipping costs.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now that's something that Dan Barrington brought up to me, and I hadn't even thought about. So I had to go back and recalculate my goal. I'd never even thought about that. That's they're going to count the shipping costs in the goal you raise.
Yeah. So somebody says, Comic Book Legend says you can post those, or you can find those prices through your post.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I ship stuff all the time. I know where to get the prices at.
Okay.
The question for me was, how do you budget it? How do you figure out, what's the best way to handle that when you're actually charging people, but what you've said makes a lot of sense. And so it's just one of those other things I kind of have to put together and make sure I've got a grip on before I go with my goal limit.
Yeah. And I'm probably going over things that you already know, but
$35, Edwin.
Okay. And that's going to be a 140-page trade, you said, and it's going to be hard.
It's more than that. It may be pushing 160 by the time it's done.
Okay, so that's
oversized. It's 10 by 13. 100. Yeah, I think it's 160 pages.
So that's more of a magazine size, right?
Yeah. Well, the European, if you buy any, like you go to Stuart Ing or someplace like that, one of those booksellers, you get one of those European comic albums. They're generally about 10 by 13, that size. So they're considerably larger than the American. Don't forget the buddy system, 2-book offer. Yeah.
So yeah, you can lower the price a little bit, like maybe take $5 off or $10 off if they buy 2 books.
Right.
There's a lot of helpful people in chat right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Never Cold says, what's your pup's name?
Lucy.
Oh man, I was thinking it was going to be something like what is that? A Swamp Thing or something?
No, hey, it's my wife's dog. It's a red dachshund. So she named her. I just get to take care of her because I work at home.
Oh, so your wife works outside of the house?
Yeah, she's a teacher.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it's just me and the dog all day long, and her usually bugging me for something like she is right now.
So you want to start wrapping this up? Is there anything?
Yeah, I probably should go. I got to get some lunch, man. I got to get to work.
Yeah.
This has gone by so quick, and I'm so grateful you guys, all these people tuned in to listen to this. It got a little not as fun at the end. It's better to listen to us guys tell stories, I know, than ask questions about crowdfunding. But we're also counting on you guys for a crowdfunding project. So I guess you need to know that. So we're being transparent, right?
Yeah. But people in the chat actually came alive when we started, asking these questions. So there's a lot of helpful people out there.
People know.
And, yeah. So it's good to know. Yeah. And so Aaron has a YouTube channel as well. And he just started that up. What, maybe 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, just about a month ago. I've got 4 official episodes out. I split one episode into 2. So there's actually 5 videos up, 4 episodes as I'm calling them. Some of them are process. Like I said, the first 3 are me laying out the first Garbage Man page and then doing a blue line underdrawing on the finished art. And then I'm going to do a couple of videos showing me actually doing the finished pencils on that first page to the story. But there's also a video of me talking about some comics that I own and some artwork that I own. So the name of the show is Talking Comics and Art. And so it's going to be process stuff. There's also going to be, stuff that would be interesting to people that aren't artists, but are maybe comic book collectors or readers or art collectors or just people that appreciate comic art. So I'm trying to mix it up a little bit so it's not just these, boring Bob Ross tutorials that, if you're an artist, you're like glued to the screen. But if you're not, you're kind of like, get to the end there and get to the end.
What I tease everybody for, we're coming in on the October Halloween months. I'm going to get a Bob Ross fro, and I'm going to do a tutorial on YouTube as Bob.
Well, you mix it up on your channel, right? You do some tutorials and you do conversation like this, and so
yeah. And is it part 1 or part 2 where you lay out that first page of Garbage Man, and you show how that logo is going to go in there, kind of like a what is his name? Oh my gosh, the Spirit guy. Yeah, like an Eisner type layout. Yeah, it's absolutely riveting, and you do it so quick and you do it so intuitively. Go check out Aaron's channel. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
Even somebody like me, I go and I watch that. And oh, okay, that's how you do it. All right. Yeah.
Well, everybody does stuff differently, so you can always learn something and get something from somebody else and go, "Wow, I never thought of that."
Yeah, and your layouts are absolutely great. And so we have that. So check Aaron's YouTube. I'm getting this banner thing down. So let me go back to the chat. Make sure you follow up on the launch art. Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm pretty sure Aaron and I are going to be sharing YouTube. We're going to be YouTube buddies. So I'm sure as it gets closer to Aaron's release, when he goes live, we'll have him back on and we'll talk.
Right. I'm shooting for October, and I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have my own webpage, which is aaronlopresti.com. I have my own YouTube channel. All that stuff. We'll be promoting Garbage Man and keeping updates on Garbage Man. And I'll be going back on your show. I'll be going on Billy's show. Everybody I can to kind of get it spread out there so that I have a best chance to succeed when I actually launch the thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to get it out, get the word out there, is share your YouTube platforms, build them up, get the subs. And if there's anybody in the chat that hasn't subbed, please do so.
Yes, it's free. Do his channel and mine. It's free. Why wouldn't you subscribe to something that's free?
Yeah, let me find. Okay, here we go. After the show, check out Aaron's YouTube. Yes. I got to get those ones that move across.
Just type in Aaron Lopresti, it'll come right up.
Yeah. And so we have that, and so like I said, we'll be in touch with Aaron. We'll have him back on. The book looks absolutely amazing, Aaron. And thank you so much for letting me work with you in the past. It was a pleasure.
It was my pleasure, Art. Thank you, and thank you for having me on, man.
Well,
Oh,
we're not done yet. I have one thing to tease.
okay.
Aaron actually did a huge favor for me and Chrono Mechanics. I should have teased this earlier, but what we have is we have a little crossover that's already started. So let me see if I can do this again. So I go screen share this.
It's like Terminator. It's going to blow up.
Hit this, hit that, and go here. Can you see this?
Yes, I can see the Garbage Man thing. Yeah.
All right. So here's your last Garbage Man promo from me today. And so then we have, boom, we have this. So this is not the one that you said you actually gave the little nod to Wrightson, but this is the one prior to that.
Right. Well, I didn't change anything except I put after Wrightson on there because it is kind of inspired by his House of Mystery cover. And I was feeling guilty that I didn't. Maybe I should have credited him. I usually don't do homage or riffs like this, but that was clearly what inspired it. And so I was like, I should credit him. Because even if one person out there thinks I'm a jerk, then I'm going to be upset. So I'm like,
yeah, it's best to err.
Jerk.
Yeah, err on the side of caution. Yeah. So if you guys don't know, I have a pre-launch page for Chrono Mechanics, which is going to be my next crowdfunding book. And this is a character. His name is Zin. He's an intergalactic deity, a child deity. And so Aaron and I were talking a little bit at San Diego Comic-Con about doing some cross-pollination, not just with YouTube, but possibly with some of the creator-owned projects that we have lined up. So he was so gracious to say, yeah, I'll do a cover for you. So one of the tiers, we're going to call it the Precious Metal Collection. So there's going to be 4 covers that represent each one of the characters, because Chrono Mechanics, there's a team, and their name is, the team is Team 9.2 of Sector 7, and the teams are always 4 mechanics per team. And so the 4 mechanics are Zin, that you're looking at now. There's Oot, who's the prehistoric caveman. There's Caravaggio, which I can announce now. I have a Caravaggio cover that's being done by Carlo Barberi. So Carlo and I were working on Super Sons together. So he's also going to be dipping his toe in the crowdfunding arena as well. So I'm sure he'll probably be going on Aaron's show as well. And so he's going to be doing Caravaggio. And so then I have Oot done by Sean Galloway, Cheeks Galloway.
Oh, so, nice.
Yeah, so he did a cover for me for Oot. The character Oot, and then I have Doug, the 70s slacker rock god, and I got a cover from the great animator Tom Bancroft.
Really?
So, yeah, so if you don't know the Disney animator Tom Bancroft, look him up. He's a little less known in the comic book circles, but as an animator, he is a legend. Mm-hmm. So I think his big claim to fame was Mushu in Mulan. So I think he did most of the design work and was the key animator on that character. But he's got a crazy Disney resume, and he self-publishes from time to time as well. So I'll be showing those later down the line. But I've been talking to different printers up front, and excuse me. We are going to do the Precious Collection, the metal collection, as different foil embossment. So Zin will probably be platinum, Aaron. So all the logo type and the different aspects are going to be all foil embossed in a platinum color. Nice. Yeah, so that will represent platinum. And so then we'll have gold, which might be Doug. So then we'll have a gold embossed for that cover.
Or like the Metal Men.
Yeah. And you know, precious metal, it kind of goes with the construction motif and all that stuff. So yeah, we're trying to kind of keep it themed. So the Chrono Mechanics campaign is going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to have a lot of high-end collectible stuff with like foil emboss and obviously collector covers by some of comics and animation's best. So thank you again, Aaron. This cover is flawless, and I'm probably going to get either Perea to do the colors, and he did the color work for Black and White. Or I'm going to get Sean Ellery, who does a lot of my Chrono Mechanics covers and stuff like that. So I'll run that by you later and see what you think,
sure,
Aaron. Yeah, so let's wrap this up. So stop sharing, go back, boom. Did that work? Are we back?
Look at that, man. You're next time I come on, you'll just be zipping stuff around and it'll just be flying on the screen. It'll be a piece of cake.
Yeah, I'm figuring all this stuff out as we go along. Oh, my buddy, let me see. Render Contender just subbed, Aaron. Looking forward to Garbage Man. So if you guys don't know if you guys don't know Render Contender, he's a good guy. And I don't think he has a YouTube channel yet, but after this video, check out the one I think just before this. And Render Contender and myself, we catch up on our past. And it's a good interview with Render Contender. So he's a really good comic book artist. He's been in and out of comics for a couple decades, but he's making a big comeback right now, and he'll be helping me out on Chrono Mechanics as well. So he's a good ally as well. So hi, Render. So I think we're pretty much. Let's see what Art Rich Studios says. I had no idea Lopresti had a YouTube. Yeah, well, that's why we're doing this, man. We're getting the word out.
Word out, Art.
Yeah. So if you want, in the description, there is a link to Aaron's YouTube channel. So you can just, after this video, click that and go right to Aaron. Sub him. I'm sure he would love the subs.
I would.
Watch his videos, like his videos, because the liking helps the algorithms. And if there's anybody still in there that hasn't liked, please like this video. And if you know people that like this content, spread the word, because this is all grassroots, baby. So we don't have Marvel and DC anymore, Aaron. This is all us.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care. So you have any parting shots? Any words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. See, now you put me on the spot. I wasn't prepared for anything.
It doesn't have to be a word of wisdom. You can just say back, Garbage Man.
Yeah, please back Garbage Man, please. No, actually, I think it's worth backing. I think it will be worth backing, and so I don't want to beg. I want you to look at it and say, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm going to back that. So, but at least be aware of it and check it out when I get the thing posted, and do follow me also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram if you're not already. Because I post stuff on there all the time about this stuff and artwork and all sorts of stuff related to that. And I also, my blog on my website, aaronlopresti.com. I'm super easy to find if you can spell my name correctly, which is not always easy. So for some people, but yeah,
it's almost phonetic. It's almost phonetic, like
it's exactly as it sounds. But you think that's Italian, and people they want to get cute and think, well, okay, it can't be that easy to spell. So it gets kind of weird sometimes. So
yeah,
and the Aaron with the 2 A's, very biblical. Yeah. Moses is.
You're one of those Aarons.
Yes, I'm one of the old-fashioned Aarons, not one of the newfangled ones with just 1 A in their name. Yeah,
and remember, I'm Art with 2 A's. It'll be my new thing.
Art.
I'm gonna rebrand myself as Art. But the book I'm looking forward to is Kit. That just reminds me of oh my gosh.
There she is, right behind me.
What the hell is his name? Old school guy.
Al Williamson.
Al Williamson, but also he worked on the early Daredevil. Ron Wood. Or not Ron Wood.
Ron Wood from the Stones, man.
From the Rolling Stones. No.
Wallywood.
Wallywood. Yeah. So it has that same kind of high-end action adventure kind of 40s, 50s kind of look,
Well, if I can do it, we're like 2 hours. This is like the longest show ever. People are like, just like dying because it just won't end. But
you're killing my algorithms here, by the way.
What I did was I came up, I didn't know what to do with the thing, right? And because it was just a series of drawings I did. They were kind of like faux 50s movie posters, sci-fi movie posters. Just as kind of a joke thing that started several years ago. And you're right, good art is good for the soul. But people kept bugging me, hey, when are you going to do something with this? When are you going to do something with this? And I was like, I don't know. But I finally thought, if I treat this as an adventure newspaper strip, like used to be, right? So I have like single adventures on a single page, but they're part of a larger continuity. And it's a humorous title. So there's like, it's like you got your jokes in there, and every episode is a single page, but it's part of a larger continuity. So I did this thing called a story print, which is actually the first episode in limited print form. I made 250 of them is all. They come signed and numbered. And what I did was if you buy the print, which is $15, then I gave you access to the first 5 additional episodes to Kit Carter. So I have a protected website, and I finally have all those up. So there's actually, counting the story print and the 5 additional ones, there's 6 complete colored, lettered, finished episodes up on this website that you have access to. And then starting with episode number 7, I'm going to go black and white because coloring just takes me forever. So I'm going to go black and white, and I'm going to post those probably on my blog and for access to everybody so that they can read from 7 on. But if you want to see the first 6 episodes, you have to buy the story print, and then you get access to them. And then eventually collect what I've got done into a book with new stuff.
How many pages do you think you have if you collect it all?
Well, I've only got 6 pages done right now because each episode is 1 page.
No, of Kit though. Oh, really? You only have 6 pages?
Yeah, each episode is a single page. So I have 6 complete pages, but they're like each one is its own separate gag. So, okay. But it's, like I said, it's part of a larger story, so it works both ways.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
you're still a ways away from having either a graphic novel or a trade, right?
Right. Well, I don't know how many I'm going to do for free before then I actually say, okay, I'm going to actually try and do this. But the hope was that you get enough of those out there that you start slowly getting people checking it out and people are aware of it. So then when you actually do launch it as a book, that you've got a lot of people that are already aware of it and looking forward to it.
Right.
Because it's a single page format like that, I can do an episode whenever I get the time, post it. It's not the same thing as if I'm doing Garbage Man. It's like, okay, well, this is a 15-page story. I can't just post a page. I got to complete the story.
Right.
Every episode is a tiny little story in it of itself, part of the larger story. So it's easier to kind of throw them out there randomly when I get the opportunity to do it.
So eventually you'll have something to follow up Garbage Man with, as far as, an independent IP crowdfunding.
Dude, I got them lined up, man. Got them lined up. Garbage Man is just the start.
Yeah, same. I want to stay here as long as I get the support, and as long as the readers keep, supporting the books and enjoying the books, most importantly.
Right. Well, they won't support it if they don't enjoy it, right, ultimately. So.
Right. So yeah, you don't want to make books that people don't like.
It probably works against the whole process.
Yeah. But I don't know. You have 25 years. I have 35 years. So I think we make product that people like.
Yeah. Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
We get a few sympathy purchases, but after that, they expect it actually to be good and worth reading. So you got to bring it. So.
Well, the sympathy thing, I can't rely on friends and family because the T-Bears are a very, very small clan. So
I'm the same way, man.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't even read my stuff. I have to show her, look what I did. Oh, that's nice.
That's nice. Yeah. So we have Comic Book Legends. Let's do this as our parting shot. Aaron, have Art teach you how to pre-launch page for Garbage Man. I think Aaron's got it down. I think he just wanted to know. What you're doing is basically Aaron's just getting a lot of knowledge from a lot of different sources and then trying to, make an opinion based on that. Yeah. So I think he pretty much knows how to do that. And we covered a little bit of it
about 2 hours ago. You came in late.
In this stream. But
all day with Art and Aaron, man.
Well, you remember San Diego? Oh my gosh. When I walked away from your table, I was like, there's half my day, because I only went in for the one day, and I didn't even get into the small press area.
This is like an Andy Warhol movie. It's like the camera shooting out a window for 8 hours. It's just you and me talking for 8 hours. Everybody's like, when is this going to be over?
Well, we'll do this again, and then we'll call it the marathon. We'll call it the marathon chat, and then we'll do that for the people. So let me see. So Chrono has a pre-launch page. So get out there and please sign up now. I teased a little bit of the exclusives. One of the things I think I teased on somebody else's show, I have a movie script that exists, and I'm trying to figure out how I should incorporate that into the exclusive if you sign up now. So if it's going to be a tier where it'll be monetized, or if we should give you like the first 10 pages and then monetize it, like 10 pages for free and then monetize it. So I'm playing with those ideas. So my agent signed off on it, my writing partner signed off on it, and his agent signed off on it. So you guys, to get 4 people to sign off on a movie script to make it public like this is a big deal. So we're going to be offering that in the Chrono Mechanics campaign as well. So yeah, go and check that out. Sign, put your name down there. You're John Hancock, and let's. We have Garbage Man coming soon. So Aaron thinks you think early October, mid October.
I want to get my pre-launch page up in the next week or so, and then shoot for October if I can do it.
Okay. And so then we have Aaron's YouTube. So go like, subscribe, and he's going to be putting how often a video a week, a video because you do edit.
Yeah, I've been putting up about a video a week. So
yours are all edited too, right? So these aren't live. Yeah,
it's not me just running on like this. It's like I go in and cut out the boring stuff, and so they're still long though, but not as long as this.
I think it's been fun.
Yeah,
if nothing else, it's been great touching base with you. So I don't know if people in chat care, but this has been a blast hanging out with you, Aaron.
Yep, Art, I appreciate it, man. So
all right,
do it again soon.
Yes. So everybody take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Right. Thanks, guys.